Most people think generosity makes you a good person, but no one tells you it can also destroy you. Because the moment your kindness becomes predictable, you stop being appreciated and start being used. The same people who clap when you give will disappear when you stop. And that uncomfortable truth you feel in your chest right now, Machiavelli warned about it centuries ago. A man who gives too much eventually loses respect, money, and power. Today, you're going to learn why and how to stop that cycle forever. Point 1. The hidden trap of good generosity. The world will praise you for being generous, but it will never protect you when that same generosity breaks you. Because the moment people expect your kindness, it stops being kindness and becomes control. There's a silent trap almost every good-hearted person falls into, a trap that feels noble at first, but slowly empties your wallet, your energy, and eventually your identity. It starts with a simple belief you were taught your entire life. Good people give. Good people help. Good people don't say no. And so you gave. You helped. You stepped up. Not because you were rich, but because you felt responsible. Maybe you were the one paying for dinners. Maybe you were the first call when someone was short on cash. Maybe you were the reliable friend, the dependable sibling, the partner who handled just this month, every month. And at first, it felt good. You felt strong, capable, respected. But slowly, something changed. The thank you turned into, hey, can you just? And you know I'm good for it. Gratitude faded. Expectation replaced it. You didn't just help, you became the default helper. The safety net. The ATM with emotions. And the sickest part? The moment you even think about pulling back, you start feeling guilty, as if you did something wrong, but you didn't. You were trained to feel that way. Machiavelli already saw this centuries ago. He wrote clearly, a ruler who tries to be loved through generosity eventually loses power, wealth, and the respect of his people. Why? Because generosity doesn't make people loyal. It makes them dependent. And dependence always turns into resentment the moment the benefits stop. You've already seen this in your life. The friend you helped 4 times, but the 5th time you said no, they suddenly got cold. The relative who called you responsible until you set a boundary, now you're selfish. The partner who loved your support until you couldn't maintain the lifestyle, now you changed. This is not coincidence. This is human nature. Here's the real psychological mechanism. When you consistently give, people stop seeing the gift and start seeing the giver as an obligation. They think, he helped me before. He should help again. I need it, so he should understand. It's not a big deal for him. And without realizing, you become something they expect, not someone they appreciate. Your generosity becomes a habit. Your kindness becomes invisible. And your presence becomes taken for granted. That's why you feel resentful. That's why you feel used. That's why your stomach tightens every time you open your banking app. It's not because you're broken. It's because you've been giving from a place of fear instead of power. Fear of conflict. Fear of disappointing people. Fear of being seen as selfish. Fear of being abandoned. You weren't helping them. You were protecting yourself from guilt. But here's the twist. The more you avoid guilt, the more resentful you become. And the more resentful you become, the more trapped you feel. This is the exact spiral Machiavelli warned about. Generosity without strategy weakens the giver. And once weakened, he loses everything. Harsh. But true. Real generosity is not about giving more. It's about giving without destroying yourself in the process. Because when you weaken your own foundation, just to keep others comfortable, you are not being kind, you are sacrificing your future. And eventually, no one thanks you for it. They only expect more. So point 1 boils down to one truth. If your generosity drains you, it's no longer generosity. It's self-sabotage. And the world will never protect you from the consequences of the habits it encouraged you to build. Point 2. Why generosity turns into an unpaid debt you never agreed to. People don't get addicted to your kindness. They get addicted to the comfort your kindness gives them. And once they're addicted, your help becomes their habit, and your refusal becomes their betrayal. There's a moment in every generous person's life where they finally realize, wait, why does everyone expect me to fix everything? That moment doesn't happen by accident. It happens because generosity, when repeated, quietly transforms into obligation, not for you, but for everyone who benefits from it. Think of how it starts. You help someone once. They're grateful. You help them twice. They appreciate you. You help them 3 times. They start relying on you. You help them 4 times. They stop noticing that you help them 5 times. Now it's your role. By the 6th time, they no longer see your sacrifice. They only see your refusal when you finally say, no. That's the dangerous psychology Machiavelli warned about. People remember what you deny, not what you gave. Why? Because generosity creates a mental contract you never signed. When you give consistently, people subconsciously rewrite the story. He always helps. He can afford it. He understands. It's not a big deal for him. Notice something? None of those statements include your feelings or your capacity. It becomes your job to maintain their comfort. You accidentally become responsible for problems you did not create. And here's the twist. The more dependable you become, the less they respect your boundaries. This is how generosity becomes invisible. Ask yourself, when was the last time someone remembered the 3rd favor you did for them? Or the 5th? Or the 10th? They don't. Not because they're evil, but because humans normalize what benefits them. It's how the brain works. We adapt to comfort. We expect what's familiar. We resent what gets taken away. This means your kindness gets absorbed, but your boundaries get punished. That's why you feel trapped. You're not imagining it. You're experiencing a psychological pattern every overly generous person faces. And when you finally stop, the shift is brutal. Suddenly you're selfish, cold, different, distant, rude, unreliable. But remember something powerful. You didn't change. Their access changed. And when people lose access to the benefits they normalized, their reaction isn't neutral. It's emotional. Because they weren't grateful. They were dependent. You weren't appreciated. You were used subconsciously. Your generosity didn't build loyalty. It built expectation. Machiavelli's lesson fits perfectly here. He warned that a leader who tries to be loved through generosity ends up being hated the moment he can't continue. Why? Because once people depend on your giving, they interpret the end of your giving as betrayal, not reality. And here's the dark truth. People don't care about how much you gave. They care about what they're currently receiving. Your history doesn't matter. Your pattern does. That's why stopping generosity feels so dramatic. You're breaking a pattern you didn't mean to establish. And people don't react to losing you. They react to losing what you provided. So what's the real danger? If you don't reshape your generosity, you'll spend your life funding other people's comfort, silencing your own needs, draining your future, destroying your financial stability, just to avoid short-term conflict, that tiny discomfort you feel saying no. That's nothing compared to the silent resentment you build by saying yes when you shouldn't. Your future is too expensive to pay for other people's temporary problems. Point 3. The real reason people drain you. Your generosity comes from fear, not strength. Most people don't give because they're kind. They give because they're scared. Scared of conflict. Scared of disappointing someone. Scared of losing respect. Scared of being seen as selfish. And fear-based generosity is the fastest road to being controlled. There's a harsh truth generous people avoid facing. You're not always giving because you want to. You're giving because you're afraid of what happens if you don't. This is the part nobody talks about. This is the part that stings the most. But once you understand it, your entire relationship with money and boundaries changes. 1. Most kindness is actually fear hiding in a polite costume. Think about how many times you've said yes with your wallet when you wanted to say no with your voice. You paid because you didn't want the argument. You sent money because you didn't want them disappointed. You covered the bill because you didn't want to look cheap. You helped again because you feared being called selfish. This is not generosity. This is fear wearing a halo. When your kindness is driven by fear, it doesn't feel like kindness, it feels like pressure. Pressure always leads to resentment. 2. Fear-based giving is how people unknowingly take power from you. Machiavelli warned that the moment someone can influence your emotions, they own a piece of your decisions. This is exactly what happens with money. People don't control your finances. They control the feelings that decide your finances. They know you hate saying no. You don't want to disappoint. You don't like conflict. You want to be seen as a good person. You're scared of ruining the relationship. They don't have to manipulate you actively. Your fear does the work for them. They simply ask, and you hand over your power before they even push. 3. Your fear becomes predictable, and predictability becomes exploitation. Here's the dark psychology. When people know you're uncomfortable saying no, they stop respecting your yes. Your yes becomes automatic. Your no becomes rare. Your boundaries become optional. Your generosity becomes expected. Before long, they don't even think of managing their own life because they know you'll step in. Not because they're evil, but because human beings take the path of least resistance, and you've made yourself the easiest path. 4. This is why strong people say no easily and are respected. For it, people respect what they cannot push. They admire what they cannot weaken. A person who can say, no, that doesn't work for me. I can't do that right now. I need to protect my finances. I'm not responsible for this. Does not lose love. They gain respect. Because boundaries communicate something generosity cannot. Strength. And strength is more valuable than approval. People lean on those who can carry their own weight, not the ones who collapse trying to carry everyone else. 5. Think of your life as a fortress. Fear knocks down the walls. Imagine your financial stability as a castle. Your income, skills, savings, these are the walls that protect you. Every time you give from fear, you remove a brick, you weaken the structure, you lower your protection, you expose your self-generosity. From strength builds connection. Generosity from fear builds chaos. Because when life hits you, a crisis, job issue, emergency, you'll have no walls left. And the same people you sacrificed for won't be able to save you. Some won't even try. 6. Fear-based generosity destroys your relationships. It sounds ironic, but the more you give out of fear, the more damage you cause to the relationship. You grow resentful. They grow dependent. You hide your frustration. They assume everything is fine. You reach your limit. They feel betrayed. This is exactly what Machiavelli meant when he said, trying to be loved through giving ends in hatred. Not because you're bad, but because fear creates imbalance, and imbalance always collapses. 7. The shift. Generosity should come from strength, not survival. The goal is not to stop giving. It's to stop giving from fear. Real power is when you can say, I will help because I want to, not because I'm scared of what happens if I don't. That's the kind of generosity that builds respect, trust, stability, connection, real influence, not exploitation. Point 4. When you start setting boundaries, people reveal their true faces. When you stop giving the way people are used to, something strange happens. They don't thank you for what you did. They attack you for what you stopped doing. And that reaction exposes exactly who was benefiting from your generosity and who truly valued you. Here's the truth most people never realize until it's too late. The moment you change your financial behavior, you don't lose people, you simply see who they always were. Because the second you stop paying, covering, rescuing, fixing, you trigger their true identity, not their smile, not their words, their real loyalty. And for many people in your life, your no is the first moment you actually test the relationship. 1. The people who benefited the most protest the loudest. This is exactly what Machiavelli warned about. He said, when you reform something, the ones who lose their advantages will fight harder than those who gain will support you. Applied to money, it becomes painfully accurate. The friend who loved free lunches, he'll guilt trip you. The sibling you always bailed out, they'll say you changed. The coworker who freeloaded, they'll act shocked. The partner who relied on your spending, they'll suddenly get cold. They're not upset because you're unfair. They're upset because the source of their comfort is disappearing. They weren't attached to you. They were attached to the benefit. 2. People who truly care will adjust. People who used you will disappear when you say, I can't cover this anymore. Watch the reaction closely. Some will say, no problem, let's split it. I understand. These people value you. Others will withdraw, complain, guilt. You get irritated, pressure. You make sarcastic comments, play the victim. These people valued your wallet, not your presence. Your boundary didn't break the relationship. It revealed it. 3. When you stop rescuing people, they call it selfish because it benefits them to say that people will use emotional weapons like, you're not the same anymore. You're acting selfish. Wow, money really changed you. You used to be so generous. No, you used to be controllable. You used to be scared of saying no. You used to mistake survival, behavior for kindness. Now you're saying, I matter too. My stability matters. My future matters. And the moment you do that, the people who relied on your weakness will try to pull you back into it. Not because they're evil, but because they benefited from your lack of boundaries. 4. Your generosity becomes normal and your refusal becomes offensive. Human beings adapt dangerously fast. The first time you help someone gives, they're grateful. The 5th time gives, they're comfortable. The 10th time gives, they expect it. The 15th time gives, they're entitled. And the moment you stop gives, they feel betrayed. Not because you betrayed them, but because you stopped betraying yourself. Your no breaks the fantasy they built, that you were always available, always willing, always responsible for their comfort. When you break that fantasy, the mask falls off. 5. Boundaries expose. Who can stand next to you in your strength? Most people like you better when you're small, tired, and giving. It makes them feel bigger. But when you become stronger, financially, emotionally, mentally, it forces them to confront their own laziness. Your growth creates a mirror, and many people don't like the reflection. That's why they push back when you stop overgiving, stop saying yes, stop funding their irresponsibility. Start protecting your money, start valuing your future, start acting with discipline. Your strength threatens their comfort, and people protect their comfort more than they protect relationships. 6. The right people don't want your money. They want your presence. Real relationships don't collapse because you stop paying someone's bills. Real relationships collapse when they were built on dependency, not connection. Healthy people want Your honesty, your time, your wisdom, your presence, your partnership, your growth, not your debit card. Weak relationships need money to survive. Strong relationships grow even when money disappears. 7. Saying no is the moment you finally become respected. You won't feel it immediately. At first you'll feel guilty, selfish, anxious, uncomfortable, unsure, because you're breaking years of habit. But over time, something powerful happens. People stop asking for handouts. Entitled people fade away. Users detach. Opportunists lose interest. Manipulators back off. And the ones who truly love you learn to meet you where you are instead of draining what you have. Your no becomes a filter, a purifier, a cleansing mechanism. It removes the wrong people so the right ones have room to stay. Point 5. The new form of generosity. Give like an investor, not like a savior. The world taught you to give emotionally, but the wealthy, they give strategically, with a plan, with limits, with clarity. Because real generosity isn't about emptying yourself. It's about building yourself so strong that when you choose to give, it actually makes lives better, including your own. We've spent the entire journey exposing how uncontrolled generosity drains you, weakens you, and opens the door to manipulation. But now comes the transformation. How do you become generous in a way that builds your life instead of bleeding it? Because the goal is not to become cold, selfish, or disconnected. The goal is to become strategic, disciplined, and powerful with your giving. This is the difference between a savior who collapses and the builder who elevates everyone around them. 1. Generosity should strengthen your future, not sabotage it. When most people give, they don't think ahead. They think emotionally. They'll be upset if I say no. I don't want conflict. They need me. I feel guilty. But emotions can't guide financial decisions. Not if you want stability. Not if you want power. Not if you want freedom. Machiavelli warned that a ruler who gives recklessly eventually becomes a burden on the very people he tried to help. Modern translation. If your giving destroys your stability, you will eventually disappoint everyone, including yourself. The first rule of real generosity is simple. It must be sustainable. 2. Give from your overflow, not from your survival. There are 2 types of generosity. 1. Survival generosity. You give while sacrificing your own needs, your savings, your peace, your future. This kind of giving creates resentment, dependence, and burnout. 2. Overflow generosity. You give from strength, from financial stability, emotional clarity, and real intention. This creates impact, respect, and long-term value. The world confuses these 2, and that confusion is why millions of people feel drained. Generosity is beautiful, but only when it flows from a full cup, not an empty one. 3. Your new rule. Be generous with your life and selective with your money. Money is not your only form of generosity. You can be generous with your time, your wisdom, your attention, your encouragement, your network, your experience, your mentorship. These cost you little and can transform someone else's entire direction. But money? Money must be treated differently. Money can weaken, enable laziness, build dependency, or distort relationships. This is why powerful people use money as a tool, not a bandage. They give money in ways that create momentum, not stagnation. 4. When you choose to give money, give as an investor. This is the part where everything changes. When you decide to give financially, you give with structure and intention. Ask yourself 3 questions before giving. 1. Will this help them grow, or just reset them to 0? If your money only brings them back to where they were, it's not help, it's maintenance. 2. Will this contribution weaken my long-term stability? If saying yes damages your future, it is a non-negotiable no. 3. Are they showing responsibility or repeating patterns? If they're not changing their behavior, your money is feeding the cycle. Investors don't pour resources into broken systems, and neither should you. 5. Boundaries aren't barriers. They are instructions for respect when you give with boundaries. I can help this one time. This isn't a pattern. Let's make a plan. I need you to take responsibility. You're teaching people how to treat you, and real people, strong people, decent people, they respect that. Weak, entitled, dependent people, they get angry and disappear. Good. Let them. Your new generosity is a filter. It invites in the right energy and blocks the wrong one. 6. The highest form of generosity. Making yourself unshakable. Imagine a version of you who is financially stable, emotionally grounded, respected, calm, free, strong, unmanipulated, unafraid, unshakable. This version of you can help far more people than the drained, exhausted, overgiving version ever could. Because when you're stable, your generosity becomes power, not sacrifice. When you're strong, your giving becomes impact, not rescue. When your fortress is solid, you can pull others up without falling yourself. 7. The transformation. Giving from strength creates real legacy when your generosity is intentional. You give without resentment. You help without guilt. You support without losing yourself. You build without breaking. This is the kind of generosity that makes your relationships deeper, your life more meaningful, and your future more secure. It is generosity with wisdom, generosity with structure, generosity with strength. The kind Machiavelli would actually respect. Asterisk, 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 CLO Zion. If today's lesson hit you, then it's time to protect your future, your money, and your power. Remember, real strength comes from silence, discipline, and strategy. Subscribe to Silent Crow and comment what you learned, because this is where men stop being used and start rising. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk.